I'm Sarah Wilson and you're listening to the Roots and All podcast. I'm here to help you get growing. Join me as I explore everything plant related both indoors and out and provide the information you need to create your perfect green environment. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I came across this week's guest, Ricky Whelan, on Twitter when I saw mention that a talk he was giving on the secret life of crows had been cancelled. As a lifelong lover of crows myself, I thought it would be great if Ricky could still share some of his findings and if I could also find out a bit more about these birds in general, but also in a garden context. So if you're intrigued to find out how corvids organise their societies, how they communicate, about their love lives and about the good and the not so good things they do in the garden, join us as we put an eye to the keyhole and spy on the secret life of crows. I started out asking Ricky what led him to study this complex and fascinating group of birds.
Yeah, so I used to work in the UK for the RSPB, and when I came home, I began to work for BirdWatch Ireland, who's suppose the equivalent in the Republic. And a family friend of ours asked what I knew about a rookery in the local town in Portlaoise, and I basically had to sort of admit that I didn't know anything, and he was asking because I was the only ornithologist he knew. And out of embarrassment almost, I kind of took it upon myself to look a bit sort of further into this particular population of rooks. And from there I start reading, and I couldn't put books down. There was just so much to read. And I started off with rooks and then led me into magpies and jays and the other corvids. So I just started picking it up, and instead of it just a waste not to do something about it. So I put a talk together, and we sort of have toured it. It's been very popular here in Ireland. People are fascinated with rooks and crows. There's an awful lot of folklore and sort of folk tales and various things about them. So they lend themselves well to a good entertaining talk. So I've been doing that around the place for the last couple of years.
And I suppose I should ask really before we go any further, because I can't get my head around this. Obviously, the corvid family's fairly large, and I think some people have problems. Jackdaws are quite distinctive, obviously, because they've got the silver hood. But in terms of crows, rooks, and ravens, are there some easy kind of ways to distinguish them from each other?
Yeah, so I suppose there is and there isn't. I mean, the corvids are sort of all they're passerines, so they're songbirds. They're the largest of the songbirds. People will be amazed to hear that they're actually songbirds. There's 120 species worldwide, and there's 40 species of corvids, which is sort of the true crows. So jackdaws, jackdaws, rooks, ravens, those sort of ones, the big black ones, I guess. So I mean, a raven is massive, and they're quite guttural in tone, and they've got a really, really sort of strong, stout beak or bill, and they're really, really large, and you rarely see them in more than one or two birds together. Then rooks are the ones sort of people be familiar with in their towns and in the countryside in huge, huge numbers. They're the ones that form rookeries and big winter roosts. And then jackdaws are little guys you see in sort of Tesco's car park and on roofs and nests and chimneys. Quite handsome, much smaller, with little blue-grey eye, and they're quite a handsome bird. So they're kind of the three most common. People will be obviously familiar with the magpie. Jays are a woodland bird, but they've become more common at bird feeders now. They like peanuts, and they're quite colourful compared to the other corvids. So they've kind of got a blush body, and then they've got a nice blue patch and a white patch on the wing as well. So they're quite colourful. And then chough. Chough is a crow from the coast, and anyone in some parts of certainly the south and west coast of the UK might be familiar with chough. Have a red bill and red legs, and they're quite a small crow as well. But people might be familiar with those. And then there's carrion crows, which is the big black eye. So they're probably the ones that people mix up most with rooks, and especially young rooks, because young rooks have a black bill, and so do carrion crows. So it can be, I have to say, it can be confusing until you get your eye in.
So I saw some birds yesterday that looked like quite large crows, but their beaks, they had almost a kind of beige look to the base of them.
Yeah, they'll be rook.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so the adult rook has a big kind of grey beige beak, as you say. And over time, within the second or third year, that patch kind of goes onto their face to extend their beak.
Mm-hmm.
They lose the feathers and the whiskers there. And that's actually, that allows them to probe deeper into the mud. So the youngsters can't do that. But it allows them to probe deeper for leather jackets, which is the cranefly larvae, which gardeners will be very familiar with. They like those, and that's what they're after.
Okay. So when you give your talk, you said it's quite popular. I thought it'd be good to find out, what are some of the most surprising things that people find out? Obviously, you've said that they're songbirds, which has already surprised me. But yeah, what do you think people are most kind of fascinated by or interested to find out that they didn't already know?
Yeah, so I suppose certainly the level of intelligence, I think, shocks people. And I suppose we'll hit a bit more on that later on, but that's certainly surprising to people. I think the sheer level of community and everything else, their gregarious nature, their communal nature, and all that sort of strikes people as well. And they've got quite a strong societal makeup. So when you go into that in detail, it takes people by surprise as well. They've got really strong memories, and people are amazed by the raven's ability to do a thing called rapid repairing. So years ago they discovered this when ethics and science didn't really go together, but they used to take female ravens off the nest. She'd be on eggs or young, and within an hour or two, the male would have her replaced with a sort of fully functioning mother for his chicks, which is a really strange one. And a massive sort of mad ability for them. So there's all these sort of strange facts and things that people just really are taken by surprise. And Irish people by nature are suspicious, and they really, really dislike rooks and jackdaws largely. So any sort of positive spin you can put on them, people like to hear about it.
So do you want to talk about the societal structures within the groups?
Yeah. So if we look at rooks, I mean, they go around these huge murders or whatever you want to call parliaments, and in the evenings in the winter, they form these huge roosts in stands of trees on the edge of town or in fields or whatever. And within those, you'll have the various generations of birds, and you have pairs that have they're monogamous, so they pair for life. There's caveats to that rule we probably might hit on in a while, but they will roost at a site. Normally, that's also a rookery. So a rookery refers to where they nest, predominantly, but they can share. A rookery can also be a roost site. But birds from various rookeries will join together and form a big winter roost for protection and heat and all that sort of stuff. But they will go away in the morning to various feeding sites where they know there's food. They go in sort of in various family groups, into groups that they're loyal to. And then return come dark to this site. But there's a pecking order in the roost. So at the top of the roost is the older birds, the sort of alpha birds, and the mature birds, and they get the very tops of the tree and the best roosts and the strongest branches. Below them then is sort of, teenage birds, I guess, and they get the second best pick of the branches and the roost sites. And then below them is sort of immature birds, maybe just that just were born this spring, just gone. And what's happening there is the information from all the birds below is filtering up. So the adult birds are getting the best information about where the best food is, where there's danger, what's going on. And all the time, all the poo is raining down on the subordinate birds below. So the structure of the roost is segregated that you want to be at the top getting all the best information, but you do not want to be at the bottom sort of getting everyone else's poo on your head. So that's quite interesting. But if you watch a roost, more often than not, a group of birds will be late, and all the birds will have settled and gone quiet, and then some sort of 100, 200, 300 birds will arrive from some direction, and all have to resort themselves out again. It can't be just, these guys are just fit in at the edge. They all have to sort of refine their pecking order. There's a lot of noise, a lot of reshuffling. It's quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, I wonder if that's sometimes what you see when you see a bit of a to-do around a tree. Yeah, that must be what it is.
It's very funny, but there's other examples. Jackdaws, which are the smaller guys, they, for example, males, they can sort of improve their social standing by mating with an older and more mature female in the group or whatever. So they will often dump their younger female and choose maybe a widowed bird that has a higher standing. So that's quite common in jackdaws as well.
Wow, marrying up. Brilliant.
Yeah, marrying up, yeah. So the social standing is important to them for whatever reason. No, I suppose it gives them, probably gives them, their pick at food bonanzas and stuff. The sort of higher they are in the group, the richer pickings.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting what you said about, so if anything happens to a female who's sitting on the nest, then there's a replacement in the wings, and yet they mate for life. So how does that system work?
Yeah, that's interesting. So Derek Radcliffe wrote a book called The Raven. It's still the Bible. It's an old book, but he discussed it in length. And the theory is, and a guy called Brent Heinrich in the US has done a lot of studies on ravens as well. His books are very entertaining, but I suppose the format is that they kind of, in their teenage years, before they're mature enough to breed, ravens have kind of, they're eyeing up their future partner, if you like, but also apparently they're eyeing up a sort of a fallback guy or girl, in case they get let down somewhere along the way. So apparently there's a small group of replacements that they can call on at any time if needed. Now, it's quite strange because the other question is, what if she is paired up in the meantime? How has he found her? Are they just knocking around? It's a really, 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 really crazy sort of adaptation. But I don't know if anyone's fully sure how it's done.
No, because they're kind of redundant for the majority of the time, presumably.
Yeah. And I suppose these days, ethically, you can't really. I mean, back in the 40s, 50s, were just doing everything. They were posting seabirds to other parts of the world that they shouldn't have been to see if they could make their way home, and lifting ravens off nests and all this sort of stuff. It's all protected now, so it's a different sort of scientific landscape now.
Yeah. So you were sort of talking about how clever they are, and I think anyone who's had a few in their garden will probably know they are pretty intelligent. But just how intelligent are they?
Yeah, so there's various clues that suggest when animals are features that animals I suppose show when they're quite intelligent, and one is adaptability. So crows are very adaptable, and it's one of the reasons why there's super abundance of rooks and jackdaws and carrying crows and things in the wider countryside, because they've adapted to humans and to what we've done to the landscape and to modern agriculture, where a lot of other birds and people will be well aware of this, are suffering because of sort of intensification of our landscape. But they've adapted quite well, so that's a sort of nod to their intelligence. Also, birds that play, or animals that find time to play, that's quite a sort of a suggestion of intelligence. Because if you've got your life so sorted out that you can be sort of socialising and doing what you like all the time, it's a good suggestion that you're successful and you've got your wits about you or whatever. Caching food is another one, so they cache an awful lot of food, which means hide it for later, and that takes a certain amount of intelligence to refine that food. They learn, and they can learn how to do things. They can recognise faces, and I'll give you a good example of an experiment in a second. And then they communicate. So any birds that they can even mimic speech. So that's another one. Dolphins do that. The great apes do that and stuff. So they share certain features with animals that we are very familiar with being intelligent. And of course, they're also they show empathy as well to each other, and that's another thing that humans thought for years we were the only ones sort of able to show empathy or to understand empathy. So they do. They are empathetic to other crows, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I used to put food out for a cat. We had a sort of semi-feral cat that used to come to a place where I worked, and I would call the cat. And then I suddenly twigged that every time I called the cat for food, this crow would show up. So it had learnt that I would come along in the morning and learnt the cat's name and would fly over. So
learn the routine, learn the cat's name.
Yeah, they're obviously very clever on that front. But you also hear them, if you're outside, you hear them in trees. And sometimes they make the most bizarre sounds. There's kind of sounds that sound a bit like monkeys. There's a whole repertoire of kind of songs and sounds. Do they communicate in a language to each other?
Yeah, they do, and all birds do, but they have a kind of sophisticated repertoire, I suppose, of phrases or words or whatever you want to call them, and like a lot of species would. But also they're great mimics, so they can, and especially, people be familiar with the starling making sort of car alarm noises and all that. But crows, rooks can make an awful lot of different sounds. I've heard them doing seagull, I've heard them doing dog, all sort of strange calls. So on top of a very deep repertoire of phrases that they use for daily sort of stuff, they have an awful lot of stuff they're just thrown in there probably for fun, and just to sort of rattle off these phrases. Like, you might be singing to yourself in the kitchen while you're cooking your dinner or whatever. It's sort of a similar thing. But they would have they'd have, what would you say, they'll have communication calls whilst they're flying, to make sure they're all heading in the same direction, they're all on the same page. They'll have angry sort of conflict calls where there are alarm calls. People will be familiar with alarm calls. They're kind of, quite raucous, quite loud, and judging by their sort of position and their body language, they're easily identified as alarm calls. Then they have more sort of, I suppose, affectionate calls and close to the nest. If you're near a small rookery or whatever and it's not too noisy, you can hear them cooing to each other and making these sort of nice little kind of guttural sort of belly rolls. It's quite an interesting sound. It's hard to describe. But no, if people Google it, they'll find various things on it. It's quite interesting.
I wonder if that's the one that I'm hearing that sounds a bit sort of, it's like like you say, it's really hard to describe. It's like, I suppose, a kind of loud grasshoppery noise. It's there's so many, and even I know, so like wrens, for example, are well documented as having accents from across sort of part of countries and continents and stuff. So no doubt the rooks here in sort of the middle of Ireland sound a bit different than the rooks over with you in Sussex. So it's really amazing. That is amazing. Yeah. So you sort of spoke about they can recognise faces. Can they recognise? Yeah. They can recognise humans.
Yeah, there's a really, really interesting study in the University of Washington. A guy called John Martha, who has a pile of books as well. If people want to read up on him, you get them pretty cheap on Amazon paperbacks. But he had an experiment to see if the crows, they're American crows, quite similar to our rooks, I suppose, or probably closer to carrion crows. They nest on the campus. So what they did was they walked around the campus to see if the crows fed them any bit of heat. They didn't. So then the next day they put on a mask of Vice President Dick Cheney and a caveman, and they walked around campus, and again the crows ignored them. The third day they put on the caveman mask and they caught some of the birds at the nests, and they tagged them so they knew which birds they had sort of been in contact with, to put colour rings on their legs so they could identify them. On the fourth day they walked around again with both masks, and the birds absolutely scalded the caveman, having been caught by him the day previous. So this went on first for days, then for months, and then for years. And it actually carried on for up to 4 generations of new birds. Birds that weren't even born at the time were still afraid when they seen the caveman mask. So they were not only able to recognise the face, those birds were passing on generationally the information that this guy's a bad guy, watch out for him.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's, I think many species, it depends. Things become trendy in science. Back during World War II, World War One, pigeons were really well studied because they were carrying a lot of messages over the sort of front line and stuff. So they became really popular to study, and we found out a lot about pigeons. But kind of ravens now and crows have a new sort of focus, and there's a lot of very interesting stuff coming out on their intelligence at the moment. But again, that trail could sort of go dead. It's not trendy anymore. So now is a good time to sort of enjoy it and sort of comb around the internet looking for stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I read when I was kind of doing a little bit of research on this, I did come across an article that said that they've got a really complex way of dealing with the death of one of their group. Is that something that you looked into for your talks, and can you talk about that?
It's not. I've met a dead end on it somewhere, stuff that I can't. I suppose contradicting stuff. So I don't know. There's a well-known term, certainly over here, called a sort of magpie funeral. And where magpies will gather around the dead magpie and sort of what seems to be mourning it. But there's a lot of stuff in the books to say that that's us putting a sort of human characteristic on birds or whatever, and a sneaking suspicion that actually they're just eyeing the dead bird up as a free meal and not wanting to waste it. So there's a couple of different theories on it, but again, they do show empathy. And I have seen rooks on the edge of the road, sort of beside other dead rooks, and you would imagine it's the pair, the other half of the pair, and they're probably sort of trying to work out, are they actually dead and what to do next. So it's interesting, and they are monogamous to a point, but like I said, jackdaws will jump ship if they find a better female or a more mature prominent female. And magpies are devils as well. They do a thing called pair guarding, and everyone's familiar with the rhyme, one for sorrow, two for joy and all that. But the reason you see two magpies together a lot is because the male so closely guards the female because he's afraid another male is going to give her the slip. And so he stays really, really close to her, especially in the springtime. She goes up a tree, he'll go up a tree, behind the wall, she'll go behind, or he'll go behind the wall. And that's because in the females will allow for a bit of genetic diversity in the loose colony in an area by allowing a sort of strange male to mate with her behind the other male's back. And he will rear another male's young, if you like. So every couple of generations that would happen within the local magpie population. So that's why the males are so on alert for that. So they are monogamous, but they will have sort of intermarital affairs, I suppose. Yeah.
So apart from potentially eyeing up some of their dead as food, what is their main food source, or does it vary between the species?
It varies between species. So the jay is a woodland bird, and they would have been the ones who would planted the great Irish oak woodlands, because they would have cached the oak, the acorns, and forgot about a handful of them or whatever, and they would have then became saplings, and then eventually the great oak woodlands of Ireland that we eventually cut down for agriculture and all that sort of stuff. So they still predominantly live on acorns over here, but certainly they're beginning in sort of, as we've settled down and began to feed birds in the last 20, 40 years, and they became adaptable now, and they're starting to eat peanuts and stuff. The likes of rooks eat an awful lot of vegetation and plant material. So you'll hear a lot of farmers complain about them going through the rows of winter barley and stuff, and they'll actually pick the seed out of the drills. They also eat a lot of invertebrates like leather jackets, which is the crane fly larvae, and all sorts of stuff. So they're quite adaptable. It depends. Whatever is available to them, they will eat. They're omnivorous. All of them are actually. All of the crows are omnivorous. Mm-hmm.
Talking about sort of pecking at lawns and things, is there anything they do that's beneficial for gardeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose I've already mentioned the leather jacket, but there was I suppose an incident or an issue in New Zealand many years ago. Rooks were introduced, and they decided to get rid of them because they're very good at looking after their native wildlife over there. But what happened was there was actually a massive outbreak or whatever, a pandemic of leather jackets. So in a couple of regions in New Zealand, they decided to keep their rooks to help stave off the leather jacket plague. So they do eat an awful lot of agricultural pests. So it's probably they're good in one way, but at the same time when those pests run out or it's not the season for them, they're probably preying on your actual crop. So it's sort of give and take.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid being taken around a farm where they had rows of dead crows that they'd shot hanging from fences as a warning to other crows. Hopefully you don't see that sort of thing so much now. But, I suppose you could talk for hours and hours about the folklore around crows, but have they been unfairly persecuted in the past?
Well, it depends. I mean, they're still considered vermin in both UK and Ireland. because of their impact. So the vermin list is derived by the government, it's derived by scientists, so who believe that they are making a sort of, I suppose, an undue, negative economic impact on whoever. So you can, and I mean, once you're vermin, it's no holds barred. It can be shot at the nest at any time of year. So it's kind of, I believe it's a bit unfair that you can go into a little woodland with a double-barrel shotgun and shoot out nests. That seems to me a bit barbaric. But it's certainly legal and it's certainly widespread. And I just seen in the last month, Shooting Times in the UK, a big article about sort of the duties of hunters to clean out the crows to help ground nesting birds and songbirds and even farmers with crops and stuff. And there is an argument to be made for that. Rooks do love eggs and young of other birds, as do magpies and stuff. So I suppose it really, I suppose I'm sitting on the fence here. I've been going around doing this talk for 4 years in sort of in support of the crows, but at the same time, I would be sympathetic to certain issues raised that I've just raised there. So it's I suppose it's up for people to decide themselves.
Definitely. And obviously, you have discovered so many amazing things about them during your research. But what's the one thing that surprised you the most out of it?
I think the raven rapid repairing thing is still the thing I go to every time. I just think it's absolutely amazing that can happen, and that it can just Houdini up a new mate to carry on with the nest and all that stuff. I just find that absolutely bonkers. Probably the video, I show a couple of videos when we're talking about intelligence. And if people want to sort of Google it when they go away, there's a really good one, and it's narrated by David Attenborough, and it's called City Living, but it's crows in Tokyo breaking walnuts on the road. But it's not just that they're cracking them on the road, which is intelligent enough. They actually wait for the cars to drive over them to crack them, and then they wait for the lights to go red so they can go across the road and retrieve the cracked nut. So it's really, really an amazing video, and it's probably the one that takes everyone, sort of people's jaws drop when they see it.
That is brilliant.
Another one I really like is these hooded crows, which are the equivalent of carrion crows. Here they really love snowboarding. So there's lots of videos of them sort of using a small piece of plastic and jar lids and stuff to snowboard down snowy roofs in Russia and places. So that again is showing how intelligent they are. They've got enough food and they feel safe enough, all that sort of stuff. So they've got the rest of their life sorted out. They can take a few hours to go snowboard. That really does show you that they've got their wits about them, and they're highly intelligent animals.
And if you're curious about the snowboarding crow, I've posted a link to one of the videos on my Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn feeds, but you can easily Google it. So a very big thank you to Ricky for taking part in the episode. Once everything's back up and running, I'm sure he'll be back out delivering the whole talk, so do check out his social media, links to which are in the show notes. And thank you as always to you for listening. I'll catch you next Tuesday. You can download or listen to the podcast direct from the website www.rootsandall.co.uk, where you'll also find my blog and a sign-up form for the newsletter, which gives you a weekly roundup of content, plus the inside scoop on things like upcoming guests. Or you can subscribe wherever you normally get your podcasts. Email me with comments and feedback at podcast@rootsandall.co.uk. Follow me on Twitter, Roots and All, Facebook, Roots and All UK, and Instagram, Roots and All Pod. But please also check out my Patreon, where you can make a one-off donation or take out a monthly subscription to help support my work, because if you like what I do, please help me to continue doing it. Even if you make a one-off donation of £1, trust me, it all helps, and I will be immensely grateful. So please go to Patreon and search for Roots and All.